Aha. And there we have it. Okay, I brought a whole bunch of different kinds of 22 long rifle ammo with me. I'm going to start out with CCI Mini Mag though. I want to go best foot forward. So this is the very first time that I've loaded this magazine. I do like the tabs on either side. That's very important for 22 because it can, a day at the range with 22 can result in some pretty sore thumbs depending on what kind of magazine you've got or loader. So far, 30 seconds in, I like the way they put these tabs on the side. They're very nice. What I'm not crazy about is the fact that the magazine holds 10 rounds. I don't know what that's all about. All right. So, opening thoughts. I have yet to fire this gun. I actually just picked it up. So this is right from the gun counter to the range. And I've seen and heard some things about the gun. I try not to saturate myself with information before I do a review because I want my review to be my review. But you can't help but have heard that people are having problems with the 44. Feeding problems and ejection problems. They're having a lot of stovepipes and things like that. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect. Now I even saw one where there was a catastrophic failure. I'm not even going to comment on that because I don't know enough to know what caused it. And there are a lot of things that can cause it, and a lot of things that can cause it that have nothing to do with the gun. So I won't comment on that situation, and let's certainly hope that we don't have anything happen in this review to comment about in that respect. So if you're looking for a holster for your brand new Glock 44, and you already have a Glock 19 or a Glock 23 and you have a holster for that, then guess what? You already have a holster for this. Like this nice Kydex one that I got from the good folks at Copper Customs. Little plug. All right, let's rock and roll. If you can rock and roll with a 22 long rifle. It feels weird to put a magazine this size with only 10 little rounds in it into the gun. All right, here we go. Very first shots. That's almost a surreal experience to shoot this gun and have no recoil. Quite interesting. Okay. Well, so far, 20 rounds in, I know that's not much, 20 rounds in, working pretty nice. One thing I do want to show you is a little thing I noticed right away before I ever shot the gun, when I was just handling it and dry firing and stuff, and that is that the slide does not want to go all the way home, or it does not want to go fully into the battery position. If you hold the trigger back, or in this copy of the gun, if I hold the trigger back and bring the slide forward gently, if I let it slam forward, then it has enough inertia to overcome whatever resistance is holding it. But let me show you what I'm talking about. So first I'm going to rack the slide without touching the trigger. All right, so, and I'm just going to let it go slow like that. All right, you see it went fully into battery, just like it's supposed to. Okay, everything's good. Now if I pull the trigger and I hold the trigger to the rear, it doesn't want to go fully into battery. See, there's just a little tiny bit that you have to nudge it forward. and that's pretty consistent. It did not affect the gun in any way during live fire, didn't malfunction at all, but it is something that if that was a centerfire Glock, you would definitely suspect a couple different components of not being right. And I couldn't find anything. You know, the recoil spring assembly is positioned the way it's supposed to be, and I didn't see any kind of interference anywhere, so everything seems to be fine. That just seems to be a little bit of an anomaly on this particular gun. Okay, I really doubt if these 22s are going to budge the plates on that shooting tree, but just for something interesting to shoot at, let's try it. Actually, it's almost nice if it doesn't, because then I can see where my hits are. Like that one that's high, low, all right. Well, I didn't, like I said, it's barely budging those plates. But it's a nice way to find out where you're hitting. And of course, this is a Glock, so it's going to have that Glock 6 o'clock hold. So I don't know about you guys, but my first thought when Glock announced the Glock 44 22 caliber Glock 19 sized handgun was, so what? Who asked for that? Did you ask for it? I didn't ask for it. The whole world was going, ooh, Glock made a big announcement. They made an announcement that they're going to make an announcement. And everybody waited with bated breath for the Glock pistol caliber carbine. And this is what we got. So once again, Glock is telling us what we want. The question is, did they get it right even though we didn't know? That has happened before. I will also confess to you that the only reason I have this gun is because I do guns. If I didn't do gun reviews, I would not be interested in this gun. At least not at this point in time. But I definitely understand why there's a place for a 22 caliber training pistol on the same platform as a duty gun or a home protection gun or a concealed carry gun. I get it, I totally do. So if it's a really good gun and it's really reliable and durable, then yeah, it has a place. Aha. And there we have it. Moving on now to some CCI. Standard velocity 22 long rifle. This is the slow stuff at 1070 feet per second. Of course, it feels exactly like a Glock 19. It's just extremely light. It's basically like a Gen 5. You've got the ambidextrous slide stop, slide release control, which is nice. You've got the same grip, same mag release, all the stuff exactly like a new Glock 19. except it only shoots little bitty bullets and the magazine doesn't hold as many. Why is that? The thing that's frustrating about 22 caliber magazines that only hold 10 rounds is that 22 is so fun to shoot. You can shoot it so fast, shoot so much of it, it feels like you spend all day reloading your magazines. Exact same trigger, pretty much exact same trigger as you would have on any Glock. And it is okay to dry fire this one. Okay, so I'm past the 200 round mark at this point, and I have one malfunction, and that was that sort of horizontal stovepipe. So I have shot so far CCI mini mag, CCI standard velocity, arms core, and federal. The federal target grade stuff, you know, that 350 rounds per box federal stuff. So that's what I've shot through it so far. And like I say, one malfunction. I'm going to try and get it good and dirty, which isn't too hard to do with a 22. It can certainly make for a lot of fun at the range, I will give you that. So if I wasn't a guy who did gun videos and gun reviews, I doubt very seriously that I would have wanted this gun, maybe ever, but certainly not right away. My first thought was, you know, once I got over the who asked for this question, my next thought was, that's kind of expensive for, you know, just a 22 to go plinking with at the range. And you can talk about trainers and all that kind of stuff if you want to, but I think dry fire is every bit as good a training with your Glock 19 as a 22 is, because it doesn't feel the same. You don't have the same recoil. So if you're going to shoot live fire and call it training, then you better be shooting some kind of ammo that's pretty close to what you're carrying. Otherwise, you're not really training. You're just plinking, no matter what you think you're doing. So if we call it what it is, what I think it is just a fun Glock 19 platform 22 long rifle handgun, then yeah, I can see that. If they sell it that way, I'm on board. It is light as a feather though, so that's kind of nice. Same exact trigger, same exact sights, much to the chagrin of a lot of people. But of course the aftermarket has you well supplied, and you can easily put another pair of sights on there if you want to. So you can upgrade your sights, you can upgrade your trigger in pretty much every way you would upgrade the trigger on your centerfire Glock. You can certainly do things like put a Talon grip on it if you want. Basically everything you would do to a centerfire Glock, you could do to this 22 Glock. Uh-oh. Did you hear that? Me hear click, but no bang. All right, so we will wait for a bit, especially with rim fire. You don't want to mess around with that. Okay. Okay, yeah, just a dud round. Throw that one in the berm. Okay, rapidly approaching 300 rounds with one malfunction. I did have one failure to fire but I'm going to blame the ammo for that, especially when you're dealing with rimfire, because it had a nice solid hit on it. It wasn't any fault of the gun. We're just going to call that a bad round of ammo. That happens a lot with 22. So far, one failure. So if you're a Glock fan, Glock guy, Glock gal, whatever, and the Glock 19 maybe is your go-to gun, maybe that's your nightstand gun, your carry gun, your duty gun, and you've got, say, a youngster in the house that you want to teach how to shoot, or you're trying to teach someone else, you know, to shoot who may be averse to recoil, they may be inherently scared of guns, things like that, and you want to sort of give them a nice, gentle introduction into firearms. This would be a good one for that. Especially though if you're like keeping it in the family and the Glock 19 or the Glock 23 is your go-to gun, then this one provides an exact copy in 22, and that can be a lot of fun. It can also be advantageous for training and familiarity. The only thing that's going to be different is the ammunition, the caliber, and obviously the recoil. Okay, let's start with what I don't like. The cons. First and foremost, 10-round magazine. I do not like the 10-round magazine. I think Glock reached back into 1932 technology and came up with a 10-round magazine for a 22 long rifle when everybody and anybody is doing better than that. Very disappointing. And then, to add insult on top of insult, they give us two, count them, two of these 10-round magazines. Every other Glock you buy for the last, 5 or 6 years comes with 3 magazines. This one comes with 2, and they're 10 rounds. So, a bit of a slap in the face, I think, to the Glock faithful, and there are plenty of Glock faithful. It's just my opinion, but that's what you get when you come to a channel called Just an Opinion. Okay, second thing I don't like, the other con, is no threaded barrel. And this is another thing where, come on, I mean, everybody, Ruger, Taurus, Caltech, everybody is giving you a threaded barrel now when you buy a 22, because most people like to have the option to suppress their 22. But I think a threaded barrel is not too much for people to ask. I really don't. And I think that for the cost of manufacturing, it wouldn't be that big a deal. And even if you wanted to make it a separate item, make it a separate SKU, where it's a $25 upcharge if you want the threaded barrel, how much is it really for a manufacturer to add a 1/2 inch of length, a little bit of threading, and a thread protector? Really not. And that is the industry standard today, like it or not. And so that's the expectation, and I think Glock falls short of that expectation. Okay, con number 3, thing I don't like. Price. I think this gun's too expensive. And yes, I bought one. And I know many of you bought one, or many of you are planning to buy one. And that is exactly why they're getting away with it being too expensive. But it is, in my opinion, too much for what it is. It is a small, short-barreled 22 caliber handgun with 2 10-round magazines, and they're charging $400 for it. Yeah, you can get them a little bit cheaper. I'm not going to get them a whole lot cheaper for a while, maybe not forever, because Glocks don't ever really drop in price much. So they're getting premium money for what I think is not a premium handgun. Okay, so all of those cons had nothing, absolutely nothing to do with how the gun performs or the quality of it. Basically, all of those things that I just said are things I don't like about the gun, because I don't like the way they've marketed it. I don't like the way they're offering it to the public for sale. So those are all business things that I don't like about it. Now, the one thing I will say is a con, and this is more from hearsay than personal experience, and that is questionable reliability. I had only one malfunction. and that was one sort of horizontal stovepipe. I had one failure to fire that was absolutely an ammo problem because it had a very hard strike on the primer on the rim, and it was just a dud round. So aside from that, I had one single malfunction. And when you're shooting 22 and you're shooting as much as I did, I've put almost 500 rounds through this thing. If they have one malfunction, is fantastic. I don't care what gun you're shooting and almost what ammo you're shooting. So I can't personally question the reliability of it. For me, in this particular case, with this particular copy of this handgun, the reliability has been spectacular. But I have seen and read and heard of a lot of problems, and you're always going to have some of that, but some of the folks that are having those problems are reputable opinions. So I can't base my review or my opinion of this gun on what I've seen other people have in terms of experience. But it is a downside. It is something that people have to consider because that information's out there. And did I mention that it only has 10 round magazines? And that sucks really bad. Okay, so those were a lot of cons. Those were things I don't like about the gun. What, you ask, do I like about the gun? Gotta like something about it. Maybe. Well, I do. I like quite a lot of things about it. So let's enumerate those. First of all, this is a perfect replica of a Glock 19 or a Glock 23 if you're a 40 caliber fan instead of a 9mm fan. But they nailed it. I mean, it is basically a Gen 5 Glock 19 made in 22 caliber. And just to show you, here is a Gen 5 Glock 19, and they are identical physically. A couple of things to point out is, number one, these are aftermarket sights on the Glock 19. And the Glock 19 is an MOS. MOS is not available, and I doubt it ever will be for this because that's a polymer slide. So this is all polymer up here except for this band of steel that you see right there that the light is picking up in profile. So you see that band of steel that is necessary to ride on the rails. And we have some steel back on the breech face and some steel down in the locking block area, but really a lot of polymer. So those are really the differences. I mean, there are many differences between a Glock 19 and the Glock 44, but physically they are identical. They're identical in dimensions, obviously not in weight. And the only other major difference is right there. Another big pro in favor of the Glock 44 is that because it is a replica of the 19, there's already an aftermarket full of stuff. Holsters, as I mentioned, are plentiful. Magazine pouches, because this magazine is the same size as the Glock 19 magazine. So magazine pouches and accessories for magazines are plentiful. Things like Talon grips and aftermarket sights and trigger components, if not entire drop-in triggers, guide rod assemblies. There are so many things that are probably available. I take that back about guide rod because obviously it's going to be sprung differently, I would think, than a 9mm. But I'm sure they'll come soon. So the bottom line is the marketplace already has this gun well supported, and it's going to that's only going to grow because it's going to be a popular gun. They're going to sell a lot of them. So number two, on the pro side, if you get a good one, and I think I was lucky and I got a good one, if you get a good one, it'll shoot, and it's a lot of fun, and it seems like it's going to be very durable and reliable. That is my experience so far with about, again, probably just under 500 rounds through it. So certainly not a huge test, but enough to give me a good opinion. Right, so I have complained about the magazines, but I'm complaining about the fact that they're 10 rounds. In every other way, they're very well made. They are, of course, just for comparison, I'll show you right up against the Glock 19 magazine. They are identical in size, physical configuration. 22 round magazines are not all that easy to make, and I think Glock did a nice job. The loading assist tabs on either side are just about the best I have seen on a magazine because they're good sized. Sometimes the loading tabs are so small that they hurt your fingers just as bad as it would be to push bullets into the magazine, but these are nice. Nice size, very easy to load these magazines. You have to be a little bit careful anytime you're loading 22 caliber to make sure that your rounds are all going in like they're supposed to. But that said, excellent. I didn't have any problem at all with these magazines, and even though they're very light, even lighter than regular Glock magazines, they drop free every time. So that's good. I don't need to read you all the specs on this gun. I'll show them to you here. Most of them are identical to the Glock 19. Really the only key difference of any significance beside the caliber itself is the weight. You know, it's a much lighter gun. It's mostly polymer slide. It doesn't really weigh anything. Magazines are lighter, so with a magazine, with an empty magazine in it, it is only 14.5 ounces. That's pretty incredible. Okay, about 300 rounds downrange today with this new Glock 44 22 long rifle, and I'll leave you with these thoughts. First of all, this is not a T&E gun. It wasn't a gift or anything like that, and I paid retail for this gun. So I don't owe anybody any favors. That said, I like Glocks. I'm a Glock armorer and have been for years, and I have a lot of Glocks and I enjoy shooting them. So I have no desire to dislike the gun, and I also have no desire to, or motivation to like the gun if it doesn't deserve to be liked. I don't like that it only holds 10 rounds. And you can say whatever you want to about reliability and all that. I've got a Taurus TX22 that holds 16 rounds, and it has never had a malfunction. So don't give me that. It can be done. So I don't like that it holds 10 rounds. I think they could have done better. I think they could have doubled that, to be honest. I think not providing a threaded barrel right out of the gate was not a good move, or at least give you that option at a very low markup, if any. Make that a different SKU or whatever. But I can't lie, it's a lot of fun to shoot. It's a whole lot of fun to shoot, and so far, this particular copy of this gun seems very well made, very reliable. I like it. What can I tell you?